signing in from different parts of the world.
Okay.
We want to welcome you to the last session of our training program. As you are all aware, we started this in the month of January, and this is our final month and the final class. I am Yanbemo from Baptist Theological College in Futuro. And this evening, we have two very experienced and also experts in the field of the topics that two of them will be discussing. And our moderator for the evening will introduce them to us. And I want to especially welcome our moderator and introduce to all of you. I think many of you will know him. He is Reverend Dr. RodinmawIa. He is the Dean of SEPTER, as you can see. SEPTER, the full form is the Senate Center for Extension and Pastoral Theological Research, which is the Senate wing for external studies. So if any one of you are interested, any of the participants are interested to do external studies, he is the man to go to. And so Dr. RodinmawIa, we're so thankful that you have consented to be the moderator for this evening's class. And so welcome to the session. Thank you. I would like to give the rest of the time to you.
Thank you, Dr. Yanbemo. And thank you very much, especially Dr. Wati, for giving me this time to be with you. He expect me before also, because of some program here and there I could not join. However, I know the program, this is a very good, a very important program, and the topic discussed here, I feel that is very relevant and very, very important. I don't know whether Dr. Wati is planning to publish this lecture or not. I really wish that it can be published and for the larger public reading. So tonight also we have this very, very important topic to discuss. And as Dr. Yanbemo said, we have two very expert and very important persons to give lecture to us. We have here Professor Dr. Lalnghakthuami, who is the professor in the Department of Christian Theology, there a senior professor at Aizwal Theological College, Aizwal, Mizoram. He is a very well-known person in Senate of Serampore College Circle, and because of her contribution, her academic contribution, and so many publications she made. And not only that, as a senior professor, he has been guiding successfully doctoral students, and so many MTA students graduated under her. So we have a very, very senior experience and also academically qualified speaker for this evening. I'm very glad that she can be with us today. She will speak about women and COVID-19. I don't know how she will go about. It is going to be very interesting, women and COVID-19. And another speaker we have here, Yanbemo. Is it correct? Yanbemo Lotha. He is associate pastor in Lotha Baptist Church, Dimapur. A very, very important person. I know that he is the member of Minority Commission of India representing Nagaland. Such a very important person is with us. And also he is a member of, I don't know, COVID control board or something like that in Dimapur, a very important body for this COVID-19 government is trying to control this and trying to fight against this. So he's there as one of the important member for this endeavor. So we have here a very, very important person, and he is going to speak about unemployed youth and pandemic. We know that there are so many unemployed youth due to this COVID. Many people are coming back. I know in my own state, Mizoram, thousands and thousands of people are coming back, losing their job from various cities of India and become, unemployed now. I don't know how, in what way he will deliver his speech. It is going to be very, very interesting. So what we are going to do here is, I will invite Dr. Lalnghakthuami first, and she will deliver her lecture. And after that, before we discuss anything, we will invite Yanbemo Lotha to take his time. And when both of them finish their talk, and we are going to have a discussion. So you please reserve your comments, questions, reactions after, they will take up after the two lecturers give their talk. So you may also put your question or comment in the chat box. Okay, that is possible. Whenever possible, they will respond. So you can put your questions, your sort of comments, whatever you want to put in the chat box, you can do that. All right. So right now we are 84 participants, quite a number of people are with us. Thank you very much, all of you. Now we will give time to Professor Dr. Lalnghakthuami to deliver her lecture.
Thank you, moderator, for the time given to me with that beautiful introduction, which I feel I don't deserve. I also would like to thank to the convener of this module, Dr. Eden, for her kind invitation. And I would also like to thank to Dr. Wati, as we know him, a humble Baptist pastor who initiates the whole program. So the topic given to me tonight is, as the moderator said, impact of COVID-19 on women, theological response from a feminist perspective. So this is under the topic of vulnerable communities. So I will share with you the screen. Can you see this?
Yes, we can see this.
Okay. This is the topic that I'm going to speak about this, impact of COVID-19 on women, theological response from a feminist perspective. I would like to start with a quotation made by Dr. Alvaro Bernejo, who says, women and girls are facing a lack of time, lack of choice, and lack of access to essential sexual and reproductive health services. If these losses can't be course corrected, the consequences will be catastrophic for women and girls, resulting in loss of health, autonomy, and life. I feel that this is a very powerful statement made by the Director General International Planned Parenthood Federation. And by stating this, I also would like to narrate one story, one story uh, made by a lady uh, who, who, who was selling pumpkin and shared her stories. Just before lockdown, she was divorced by her husband, who was alcoholic, leaving her 2-year son as her husband did not allow the boy to go along with her. She pleaded many times for his son, but she was not granted, so the lockdown continued. She went back to her parents' home. As her parents were old, she had to sell vegetables with a meager income to feed the family. It was inevitable for her to move around in spite of her fear of being infected by COVID-19. Otherwise, there will be no food on the table. Her social standing greatly situation, but she has to go on in spite of those hurdles around her. So this is just one story. There are so many untold women's stories such as like this after the breakdown of COVID-19, but little attention is given how they are negatively impacted to the crisis. In fact, the COVID-19 pandemic has impacted millions of lives around the world, but it has not affected everyone in the same way. Among the vulnerable communities, the poor and the women are the worst hit group in the world. As crisis times as such, these uncover our social and cultural biases, imbalances, and injustices towards the vulnerable communities. Focus is made here. First, how women are impacted by the COVID-19. Now, we shall try to frame a feminist perspective because this is a perspective that we are going to use as the frame of reference to study the impact of COVID-19 on women. When a pandemic or natural disaster occurs like this, certain section of people are left with misery due to the practice of unjust social structures, norms, and practices in the society. We are blindfolded to see how they suffer most, as in the case of women, thinking that it is normal. Here lies the need of developing a perspective of women that would help us to analyze the real condition of our societal outlook and attitude in general, and the nature of gender inequality in particular. Feminist perspective aims to understand and examine women's social status, roles, and experiences. It also provides a critique of social relations, analyze gender inequality, and the promotion of women's interests. By saying this, let us look at the issues affecting women by COVID-19 pandemic. The COVID-19 pandemic has a profound shock to our societies and economies. It underscores society's reliance on women, both on the front line and at home, exposing structural inequalities across every sphere, from health to the economy, security to social protection. The UN Women asserts that in times of crisis, when resources are strained and institutional capacity limited, women and girls face disproportionate impacts with far-reaching consequences that are only further amplified in context of fragility, conflict, and emergency. Hard-fought gains for women's rights are also under threat. Women's conditions seem to be worse than ever before during this pandemic. Challenges faced by women are being exposed by the pandemic more than other times of crisis. Flynn Lebers and others in their research comes up with a reliable findings of the issues affecting women and girls during the COVID-19 pandemic. They are higher rates of job losses, second, reduced financial independence and future, third, increased risk for frontline health workforce, fourth, greater burden of domestic and care work, fifth, increases risk of pregnancy-related death and teen pregnancies, sixth, reduced access to vital health services and exclusion from potential COVID-19 treatments, seven, spikes in sexual, physical, and domestic violence and exploitation. Now, let us look at how women are severely affected by the current pandemic. The first one is, before that, issues women faces are more complex and interrelated. For example, I just would like to point out this. Women's economic independence may be hindered by unequal distribution of domestic chores and less power in decision-making at home. Lack of leadership positions results in policies that perpetuate existing gender inequities across entire nations. The interconnectedness of those issues should be addressed as there is no isolated event in women's lives. So now, let us have a closer look at how women are severely affected by the current pandemic. The first one is domestic violence. Domestic abuse has increased around the world since social isolation and lockdown measures for COVID-19 began. There has been a horrifying global surge in domestic violence since the start of the COVID-19 lockdown, said by United Nations General Antonio Guterres in early April 2019. The emerging data and reports from those on the front lines have shown that all types of violence against women and girls, particularly domestic violence, has intensified. The executive director of UN Women said, even before the pandemic, violence against women was one of the most widespread violations of human rights. Since lockdown restrictions, domestic violence has multiplied, spreading across the world in a shadow pandemic. The UN Women has also reported that emergency calls for domestic violence cases in Argentina have increased by 25% since the lockdown began. Helplines in Singapore and Cyprus have registered an increase in calls of more than 30%. In the USA, the National Domestic Violence Hotline reported a rising number of victims who reach out via text or phone. The report continues to state that pandemics like COVID-19 exacerbate not only violence within the home, but other forms of violence against women and girls. Violence against female healthcare workers, as well as migrants or domestic workers, increases. Xenophobia, related violence, harassment, and other forms of violence in public spaces and online is more prevalent, and the risk of sexual exploitation and abuse becomes more likely. UN Women has reported the facts briefly. Number one, globally, even before the COVID-19 pandemic began, 1 in 3 women experienced physical or sexual violence, mostly by an intimate partner. 2, emerging data shows an increase in calls to domestic violence helplines in many countries since the outbreak of COVID-19. 3, sexual harassment and other forms of violence against women continue to occur on streets, in public spaces, and online. 4, survivors have limited information and awareness about available services and limited access to support services. 5th, in some countries, resources and efforts have been diverted from violence against women response to immediate COVID-19 relief. Secondly, let us look at sexual and reproductive health. One of the renowned scholars, Sukhoi, rightly states that the world is witnessing an increasing amount of sexual exploitation, forced marriage, domestic violence, and pregnancy. Yet, at the same time, abortion services are being reduced as many clinics are being forced to close with extremists citing the women's safety from the pandemic as an excuse. Even the World Health Organization's COVID-19 strategic preparedness and response plans have provided no recommendation on how resources should be channeled to provide safe abortion and ensure the supply of contraceptives. The governments are left to chart their own path. Contraceptives are still out of stock in Indonesia, Mozambique, and many other countries. Abortions in Italy were cancelled and are still not happening in some hospitals. Coupled with the interest in sexual violence and domestic abuse that happens in outbreaks, these problems reduce the autonomy and self-determination of women and girls and can damage their health and well-being. In most cases, most of the countries do not have a minimum initial service package for sexual and reproductive health care during the pandemic. Women and girls suffer most when healthcare systems are strained and reduced access to sexual and reproductive health services during the pandemic. Third one, livelihoods. COVID-19 is decimating livelihood across the world. It is reported that by 27 March, 84 countries had adopted fiscal measures to mitigate the economic effect on households. So far, only 16 countries have reported new or amended social protection measures that make reference to women. For example, Pakistan has increased cash transfers to women who are already receiving financial assistance from the state. Such policy recognizes the increased burden that COVID-19 is having on women because of social expectations around caring responsibilities. The World Economic Forum COVID Action states that it is women who bear most of the responsibility for holding the societies together, be it at home, in healthcare, at school, or in caring the elderly. In many countries, women perform these tasks without pay. It is estimated that the majority of those on the front lines of the COVID-19 pandemic are women, because women make up of 70% of all health and social services staff globally. Generally, women are vulnerable economically, and women's personal finances are weaker than men, and their position in the labor market and the market is less secure. Single parents are usually women who will be hit harder by the economic downturn that is now in full swing. The UN Women observes that at the glance, economic crisis hit women harder because of the following. 1. Women tend to earn less. 2. Women have fewer savings. 3. Women are disproportionately more in the informal economy. 4. Women have less access to social protection. 5. Women are likely to be burdened with unpaid care and domestic work and therefore have to drop out of the labor force. 6. Women make up the majority of single-parent households. Where everyone is facing unprecedented challenges, women are bearing the brunt of economic and social fallout of COVID-19. For countless women, In economies of every size, along with losing income, unpaid care and domestic work burden has exploded. The recent report shows that the pandemic will push 96 million people into extreme poverty by 2021, 47 million of whom are women and girls. The pandemic and measures to prevent its spread are driving a disproportionate increase in women's unemployment and decreasing their overall working time. In South Sudan, Margaret Rahman, a single mother of five who sells beans and groundnuts at a local market, lost more than 50% of her income as social distancing guidelines drastically reduced the number of people visiting the market. Her story is played out in other parts of the world too. Since the start of the pandemic in Europe and Central Asia, 25% of self-employed women have lost their jobs, but the burden of unpaid care and domestic work are increasing for women due to inequality at home. By saying the impact of COVID-19 on women, how to minimize the negative impact of COVID-19 on the women? The need to support women calls church, government, and civil society groups to take all possible measures in this crisis. A few suggestions may be made for the reduction of the negative impact of COVID-19. What we see in the screen is the UN Women suggested 5 steps that the government and businesses can take to mitigate the negative impact of pandemic on women. Number 1, direct income support to women. Introduce economic support packages, including direct cash transfers for vulnerable women and their families. Direct cash transfer can be a lifeline for those struggling to afford day-to-day necessities during this pandemic. Number 2, support for women-owned and led businesses. Businesses owned and led by women should receive specific grants and stimulus funding, as well as subsidized and state-backed loans. Economic relief should similarly target sectors and industries where women are a large proportion of workers. Number 3, support for women workers. Implement gender-responsive social protection systems to support income security for women. Bridging the gender pay gap is also urgent task by enacting laws and policies that guarantee equal pay for work of equal value and stop undervaluing the work done by women. 4, support for informal workers. Provide social protection and benefits to informal workers. For informal workers left unemployed, cash transfers or unemployment compensation can help ease the financial burden. Number 5, reconciliation of paid and unpaid work. Provide all primarily caregivers with paid leave and reduce all flexible working arrangements. Provide essential workers with childcare services. More efforts are also needed to engage citizens and workers in public campaigns that promote equitable distribution of care and domestic work between men and women. Whatever efforts that we are engaging with, we need to ensure that balance in perspective and experiences are more vital in time of pandemic. Now, coming to the feminist response to COVID-19. With the COVID-19 pandemic, humanity comes to realize the sovereignty of God in a more comprehensive way. An invisible tiny virus is more powerful than the power of missiles and weapons. At the same time, it can be washed away with soft, busy beard. Human beings are confronted with fear, anxiety, and uncertainty that we are threatened by this devastating virus. Historically, Christians were no strangers to epidemics. In response to this outbreak, Christian wrote many flight theologies exploring what measures Christians could take in good conscience. Martin Luther replied to his friend's question, whether it is proper for a Christian to run away from a deadly plague. This contains a theological response to epidemics in his time. Even in our time, a number of scholars have given their theological input in responding to current crisis. Now let us look at feminist theological response to COVID-19 pandemic. Feminist organizations and activists working across global movements come together in a moment of collective organizing to outline key principles for a just and resilient recovery from the ongoing global pandemic, as well as to track responses and uplift collective action of feminists around the world. The collective principles were launched globally in May 2020, and it describes how a feminist response to COVID-19 must, number one, center the well-being of all people in an intersectional manner. Two, ensure health and safety of all, including ensuring sexual and reproductive health and rights. Three, promote a comprehensive paradigm shift relying on adequate and equitable financing. Four, be based on and strengthen democratic values. Five, be a down payment on a just and equitable transition towards an equal and healthy planet. Six, be guided by cooperation, multilateralism, and global justice. Cross-cutting to all these principles is the promotion, protection, and fulfillment of human rights and gender equality. The response to COVID-19 must be gender responsive, advance gender equality, and must ensure the fulfillment of human rights, including women's human rights recognized in international treaties and agreements. Secondly, women made in the image of God. While governments are introducing various measures to address COVID-19 pandemic, we need to consider the feminist theological principle in our response to the current crisis. Feminist policy of the protection of women's rights, gender equality, and gender justice are to be promoted at all levels while addressing the pandemic. A feminist theological principle of human being made in the image of God needs to be revisited at this time of crisis. Everyone, irrespective of gender, class, and caste, deserve equal treatment, as the virus treats the rich and the poor equally. All human beings face the same crisis. Therefore, it is all the more important that we need to build on solidarity and partnership as men and women to fight against the common enemy of virus. It is a time for us to fight against all types of psychological, physical violence, and sexual abuse as they perpetuate further injustices to women. As women suffer psychological and physical violence at home, their body becomes a place of assault. Domestic violence is rampant everywhere. However, we need to remind ourselves that the woman's body is not a site of violence, but her body is sacred, made in the image of God. All of us must ensure that her existence as a woman is to be respected. If not, it is a violation of the image of God. The value system of the original Jesus community condemns any forms of oppression and discriminations on the basis of gender. As Gabriela Dietrich strongly asserts, it is all the more remarkable that not a single story of statement is transmitted in which Jesus would affirm the subjugation of women under patriarchal norms. Feminist ideology of partnership, equality, and equity need to be strengthened in this time of crisis. Thirdly, women's leadership. Women, who consist almost half of the total population of the country, still remain away from the policy making and decision making process of the country. In fact, even the Indian constitution gives equal political rights to both women and men, but the representation of women in parliament and state legislature is very less. Women's participation in politics is marginalized, so also in the religious body. Government and the UN must consider more participation of women leadership. It can be assumed that gender-equal societies are more prosperous and sustainable than those with deep disparities. Lina Abirafe has rightly observed that if women are once again left out of leadership roles in the response to the pandemic, the patriarchal consolidation of power in these areas will have a devastating effect on women's rights, equality, and autonomy. Women's leadership role is important in our response to the pandemic as women are the most vulnerable community in the society. So far, we are now seeing women decision makers in Germany, New Zealand, Taiwan, Iceland, Finland, Norway, and Denmark, countries with the lowest numbers of coronavirus cases and deaths, and the most robust responses to the virus. They all have women leaders. It is the right time that women should be included in the decision-making bodies. In our conclusion, even before the outbreak of COVID-19 pandemic, the patriarchal structural system pushed women at the periphery. They are sidelined, ignored, and invisible in many of the hierarchical structures in the society. They are treated unequally as the other, although they are our mothers, daughters, wives, grandmothers, and aunties. With the increasement of violence against women after the outbreak of the pandemic, women's suffering is uncountable. Let us educate ourselves that every woman has the right to live in dignity, free of fear, coercion, violence, and discrimination. Let us teach our children to say no to gender-based violence, as there is no longer male and female, for all of you are one in Jesus Christ. Let us stand up for our rights. Fear not, God is with us, and be bold for change. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Thuami, for your enlightening presentation lecture. We see here women suffers more because of pandemic, more domestic violence, more sexual harassment, economic problem caused by pandemic hit women harder, and how to minimize this impact on women. We can, the suggestion from even women, we have several suggestions to minimize COVID-19 impact on women, direct income support to women, support for women to own and led businesses, support for women to works, equal pay for men and women, things like that, reconciliation of paid and unpaid work. Then theological reflection from feminist perspective is here. Emphasis on well-being of all people should be there. Ensure health and safety of all. Then to strengthen democratic values, be guided by justice. Then also promotion and protection of human rights, very important for women. And we have to emphasize all the time that women, just like men, were made in the image of God. All are equal and should be treated as such. We need to build solidarity and partnership between men and women. And there should be more women in leadership, in politics. The punchline here is, if you look at all over the world, wherever woman is in power, we see less COVID positive case. You see, these are some of the interesting things, and there may be some questions later on. As I said, we'll take up this thing. Thank you very much. I forgot to mention that they were given 30 minutes. I think Professor Thuami limited herself within the time frame. Now we will call upon our next speaker, Reverend Yanbemo Lotha, to take his time. He will talk about unemployed youth and pandemic. Pandemic caused a number of our youths to become unemployed. What shall we do? Over to you, sir.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, sir. Is everyone hears me? Yes. Is it my voice audible?
Yes.
Yes, very much, very clear.
Okay. Thank you. Praise the Lord for giving us this opportunity. Yesterday, I came from the very interior village after conducting several seminars in the rural areas. Since 2020 till date, I've been engaged practically 24 hours into 7. So I don't know, I'm very doubt that whether I'll be able to give a very good speech or not. But mostly my lecture will be based on practical evidences. I have seen, experienced throughout these 2 years pandemic crisis. So, but the topic which is already given on the screen, unemployed youth and pandemic in Nagaland, I will try to stress only at the end. First, I will just give a little introduction, and after that, second, experience in 2020. I will try to show some of the pictures which I think will at least impress us, because without evidences, sometimes it's not good. So I will do that. And third, 2021 experiences, and fourth, action plan for post-COVID unemployed youth problems in Nagaland. So these are some of the structure I will try to share with all of you. So first of all, I'd like to share I would like to clarify some points. I am the Rashtriya Christian Manch, that is National India, All Indian Christian Christian Association. Rashtriya means in Hindi, but in English it's called association. At present, that look after the minority problem. So it's not only Christians, but also the other religions, those who are minority in India. Recently, we had a meeting in Nagaland. So I am given as an advisor from the Nagaland chapter. That is the correct nomenclature. And the second is that I'm not reverend. It's okay. I'm just a mister. And I'm just one of you, not VIP. We all serve people. So that's some clarification. So, okay, let me just straight away start 2020 experience. I will show some, with the help of my daughter, I will show some picture. Do you see this picture? Hello?
Yes.
No,
Yes,
no,
we
sir.
Okay.
No.
Yes.
No, sir.
Some of them say yes, some of them say no. I don't know.
No. You have not shown it. You have to open first the picture. After that, you share.
Yes, the picture is already open.
Yeah.
Share.
Thank God it has come.
It has come. No, okay. This is a situation in 2020 March when the national lockdown announced. All people were, in confusion and fear. So even the frontline workers, medical staff were not allowed to enter the colonies. So there were a lot of restrictions, a lot of complaints, a lot of reports came in Dimapur District Task Force, because I'm also one of the members in Dimapur District Task Force. Jimila, something wrong. Okay, wait.
It came and then went up.
Yeah, it came or not?
No. Yeah, now about to come.
Came, no?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So, we suggested many church organizations and leaders, but since we were all in confusion, they were fear. And so at the end, in short, I'll just make it in short. At the end, some of the like-minded church leaders, we discussed with DC and Commissioner of Police that we want to go and give this awareness about the how to accept and give a free passage to the COVID frontline workers and volunteers. So I think we worked about 2 months spreading the awareness message of COVID and also acceptance of these frontline workers in the colonies and wards. It has really, when we started doing that, many village councils and church leaders happily, welcomed us. So that was the initial. We started that in the initial stage. Okay, now that second picture, yeah. Some of the sequence there, I won't have time to make it in the sequence, but I'll just randomly share. Okay, they are not from the town area, but these are the villagers. So after working for so many months, I went down to this village and shared, gave some seminar. And these are the village elders, leaders, youths, and especially the Nagaland borders with the Assam. Many Assam people come to Nagaland and they always go to town and do marketing. So their lives were at risk. So when we went and gave seminar, they really knew so many things about the awareness of COVID. Yeah, the next. Okay, this is one of the pictures when the returnees came to Nagaland. Governments, in fact, were not prepared at all. We were in confusion. The system were in maze. So the returnees, even the train timing were not, arrived on schedule on the right time. Some of us had to be in the train station for 6 hours, 7 hours, 8 hours, waiting for the returnees. And when the train arrived, again, we have to be there for 6, 7 hours in, allowing them to go out from the train because we have to follow the protocol. I would never forget this moment. It's a very easy to say, but when we really experience this kind of situation, it will be remembered whole life. So in this also, in the picture which we seen, one person was Keketo Sir, and the second was Reverend Moses, and some pastor we could not show, but that was also one of the very memorable or great work for all of us. And this is the picture. It's a big group. We didn't follow SOP, even though it was lockdown. DC was here, and also leaders from different organizations. It's not only Christians, from Punjabi Samaj and Vivekananda Group, Rotary Club, and International Women Lions Club, and different NGOs and churches leaders. Lockdown was open at one time, but when the lockdown was relaxed, people did not follow SOP. So we say that Protect Dimapur team, volunteers, about 100 of volunteers, we scattered all the Dimapur down. Dimapur is Nagaland, and spread out the message of awareness of COVID, how to follow the SOP, golden rules. So because of this, many responded positively. We also distributed masks to many thousands of people. The next photo. When the returnees arrived, they were excited to reach their hometown, but they also expected to thank God. But since they were all in the train, there was a need, a kind of welcome, a word of welcome from the church leaders. So most of the time, some of the church leaders, pastors, and we were in the train station, welcome them in the name of church leaders and prayed for them. About 60–70% of these prayers I alone could do, because I was also one of the mass committee members for the returnees. So I had to be there always. Unfortunately, many could not come on time because of the train timing. So I had to take this opportunity. So this is one picture. There are so many things to share about 2020, but now let me switch off to 2021. Let me start from here. As I have mentioned in the introduction, this is very recent. Only yesterday, the date given there is 9th of this month. The situation of 2020 COVID and 2021 is quite different in Nagaland. Actually, now 2021, it's not only in the towns and cities like Dimapur and Kohima and districts, but now it is spreading even to many rural areas. I think all of us have seen that even the Mofukchung also among the district, one of the highest COVID cases. And it seems, according to yesterday's newspaper, it has spread even to some of the village areas. So before things happen, as we all know, prevention is better than cure. So I and my friend, we went to 5 villages and conducted a seminar of awareness. The response was so good. And many church leaders, Asha leaders, and SSG leaders, youth and Kamburas, they attended this seminar. And one of the very, very embarrassing situation was that when we had an interaction session, some of them, they asked that if we take this COVID vaccine, will the government give us money? And that was the thing. And said, and the compounder also were there. Nurses were also there. Nurses, according to their report, the COVID vaccine, they were the government supplied COVID vaccine to villages, but if the COVID vaccine allotment is about 100, only 5 to 6 persons could turn up. So they have to, take it back all 95 or 90, COVID vaccine. So why, I asked them, why you do like that? And they say that so many fake news are there. And somebody said, if you take COVID, it is 666 number. We are 666. It's a Satan invented vaccine. So most of the Christians, they were not, able to take this. I mean, they have doubt. They doubted to take this vaccine. But at the end, when we try to convince them, they all raise their hands and say that from today, we will all take vaccine. That was a good news because of the seminar. And also, there is no COVID task force in the village. But they decided they will have meeting on Sunday, and we will form COVID task force in the village to assist the villagers. And also one thing was that if any person dies of COVID in the village, how can we bury them? And so according to my experience, I told them, you follow the SOP and properly conduct a Christian way of funeral service and bury them. And they say that when such thing happens, they will inform me. So this is in that way, they were so happy. And now some of the villages and in some areas, they are inviting us to conduct this kind of seminar. And one interesting, this is the picture. You see the red handkerchief hanged on the neck is me. And in the front, there's forest officer and Naga Council president, and Keketo Sir is there, and from police is there, and different organization. This is a COVID cemetery. We have a Naga cemetery, newly constructed, and this cemetery is separated from the non-COVID deaths. Those who died out of COVID, we have a separate cemetery. I would like to share a little bit about this thing. Initially, when COVID, due to COVID, when person dies, no one was allowed to take home. From the hospital directly, the dead body was taken to the cemetery. And even in some cases, even the relatives and parents were not allowed. Only the COVID task force members were allowed to do the burying. And very unfortunate thing is that it was not buried by human. The dead bodies were buried by JCB. JCB. The JCB will dig and tie it up with a rope and put the coffin on the ground and even dump by the dead JCB. In such instances, once I was there praying for the COVID dead person, just wearing a simple mask. That was a PPE kit for me from a distance. And while praying for them, one of the family members from a distance cried aloud. She shouted and crying, screaming. It's very unfortunate. That happens to anyone. But the way the dead is burying, it's not like a human, but it's like an animal. What is this? Oh God, she prayed and cried and cried. It really touched my heart. After that, Sir Kekedo, I informed Sir Kekedo and also DC, Commissioner of Police. We were all alerted. And we said, why these things happen to these people? Actually, they should be buried like a warrior instead of discriminating them like an animal. So gradually, now people came to know that this news spread out. So this was recently we took the snap. we actually surrounded, we are in the cemetery and we prayed for, all of us, we prayed for the COVID dead persons and so that God will give them comfort in their soul. Now, I'll show one picture in regard to this.
It's not the one.
No, that's it.
Jolly.
Yeah. Hello. Yeah. Now, after people, we created awareness. Now all the government officials and churches and NGOs, they started helping these COVID dead persons. So this has changed into different scenario and into different structure. Now at this present, even the COVID dead person are burying in a decent way. These cemeteries are met ahead of before the dates were. Yeah, some disturbances were there. Are there? Yeah. Hello. Yeah. Hello. Yeah. So this is the present status. How even when the COVID dead persons bring to cemetery, we bury in this way. So this now the Lotha Baptist Church, Dimapur Youth Organization, Youth Organization, Dimapur, and well-wishers, we decided to construct 20 graveyard for the COVID dead persons who can avail this freely, because to even to bury, yeah, this is yes, some disturbance. Okay. Yeah. Now let me show the other snap picture. Now, let me share my experience in this cemetery. One day, when I was in cemetery, I buried 3 dead COVID-related deaths in the cemetery. Because when we heard this news that there was a time that even pastors and church leaders were not maybe informed, or we were not prepared even to go to cemetery. So we called the pastor team calls on 24/7. So this pastor's team started praying for all these COVID dead persons. And we give counseling to the COVID patients. We also pray for the COVID patients. And now, because of this service, everything is now going on very well. And because of Team Dimapur and also churches and NGOs participation in Dimapur, the COVID case is declining. So these are the only few experiences I am sharing to all of us. There are many, but let me stop here. And now at the end, I just want to challenge the listeners and the participants in this Zoom meeting. We have 2 plans. I mean, we need to focus on 2 things. The first thing which I shared is presently we are experiencing this pandemic. But because of or due to this pandemic, now many people are vulnerable, and they will have in their life the impact will be very serious. So the topic in today's topic is unemployed youth and pandemic impact in the life of youth in Nagaland. So we have I will suggest 2 action plans. I don't know because it is a post-COVID action plan. Number 1 is that action plan is that the first one is during 2020 March, a group of church leaders among the Lotha, among 18 of us, we decided to form a group and help the unemployed youth in the villages. It was in 2020 March. And our plan was that it was a one-year plan. We decided to, any amount that we have, we will put into offering box, keep that for 1 year. And in 2021 March, we will gather in one place and see how much we collected that amount for the unemployed youth in the villages. But due to the lockdown, our project could not be fulfilled, but very soon, once the lockdown is relaxed, we are going to implement this plan, especially for the unemployment youth in the villages. So if God willing, through this, some lakhs of amount we are expecting to collect, and this is one of the, in a small way, we are planning to help the youths, unemployed youths in the villages. And the second, that is a village area. And the second plan is that, B plan is that, I am also one of the office bearers in Christian Forum Dimapur. In this Christian Forum Dimapur, I was given the in charge of youth in Dimapur who are impacted by the COVID-19. According to data that we have collected, or I have collected from employment exchange from Dimapur district, in 2019, Dimapur district alone, 27,000 unemployed registered in this employment exchange. In Nagaland, according to the report, in Nagaland, every year, more than 30,000 unemployed youth registered in the employment exchange. I don't know the total unemployed youth in Nagaland, but certainly we know that the number has increased because of this COVID-19 pandemic. It's a big problem for all of us. In one village alone, it's a very small village, but when I asked about the returnees, they say that about 30 of them in one, about the household is about only 50 households, but 30 of them return from different cities and towns. So this is the situation in Nagaland. So how do we solve this problem after post-COVID? Now, I will highlight some of the survey which we have done. According to a survey in 2007, there are about 1,347 Baptist churches in Nagaland. And according to the latest report, that is after 2007, 1,615 Baptist churches alone in Nagaland. On the other hand, under Christian Forum Nagaland, we have Christian Forum Nagaland. The number of Christian churches is more than 2,500 churches in Nagaland. Now, according to the report, some of the Christian associations spend nearly 2 to 3 crores in doing mission work in other states or countries. 2 to 3,000 crores by one association spending 2 to 3,000 crores in mission work. For example, if we plan out for this unemployed youth after post-COVID, each church contribute 1 lakh for this mission plan. How much it comes out? It comes out 2 crore 50 lakhs. Now, this 2 crore 50 lakhs, if we invest or help the unemployed youth by planning different strategy, different action plan, mission plan, holistic plan, I'm quite sure that the churches will do a lot. But the problem is that how the churches and leaders can come together. It is not my responsible alone. It is not somebody responsible alone, but we all need to come together. And it's not only writings, it's not only giving sermon, but it's right time to put into action. I think almost all of us in this session are theologically trained. We were taught praxis theology. We were taught Reformation and liberation theology. Now it's the right time that all of us need to come together as one family of Christ and work out together something to solve this, at least on our own behalf in a little way, and show to the government and also other organizations that the church is really working hard to help this unemployed youth. Then certainly nothing is impossible in the sight of God. One day or the other day, we will together achieve this great crisis that we are experiencing today. So I encourage all of us to be part of this family, and let us all help each other. And thank you so much for giving me this opportunity.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Yanbemo Lotha, for your very enlightening sharing, touching the way you try to help people in Nagaland especially. And we see from the picture as well as his talk, he shared about his experience of pandemic as a frontline worker, you see, traveling in many places, interior part of Nagaland, educating people how to protect themselves from this pandemic, this COVID-19, how to handle COVID-19, how to handle the patient, a positive case, how to do with the dead, how to dispose, how to bury the dead. All these things are there. And about the vaccine, people are afraid to take vaccine. So they're trying to educate, organizing seminars after seminar to improve the way COVID death is buried in a more respectable manner, you see. Their effort resulted into a very positive way. We know, separate cemetery for COVID death, created well-planned burial sort of thing happened now. Very good, successful to a great extent. They had a plan to help unemployed youth, especially in the rural areas. You see, that is one thing. And so many unemployed youths we have these days, and COVID-19 increases unemployment among the youths. No doubt about it. How to solve the problem? So many churches in Nagaland, you see, more than 2,500, spending crores and crores of rupees on mission. If each church is contributing something for this project to help the unemployed youth, not many lakhs, even few lakhs of rupees can be contributed by each church or big churches, then the amount will be tremendous. Big amount can be collected, and from there we can work out how to help these youth. So the responsibility of the church is in question, how far the church is responsible for these. All right, so these are some of the important things I could highlight from the lecture. Thank you very much for this enlightening, thrilling, and also touching lecture. Now, there are a few questions first already there in the chat box. And Dr. Thuami, I don't know whether you have seen those questions or not, and please be ready to respond. Let me briefly restate those questions. I'm not going to read out the whole thing. In brief, let me give you something. Then after this, we will open the floor also for some more. And also you can check the chat box also, and several things are there, you see. Now, women are victim of pandemic, okay? Will it be too much or too biased to claim that women are most affected by this pandemic? Is not men are also affected? That is one thing. Then secondly, Northeast has more Christian women, Christian population. However, women are still marginalized in the church. and society. What is the reason? Why women are still marginalized in the Northeast also, where Christianity is very strong? And can you give me your understanding on gender analysis in Northeast in socio-cultural and political context? Gender analysis in Northeast. I'm not very sure about the exact intention of this question. You may be surer than myself, being much more senior to me. So I'm just putting this question to you. Your understanding on gender analysis in Northeast in socio-cultural and political context. Then the next one is, what is the best way to do away with gender-based violence? What would be the best way to do away with gender-based violence? He suggested whether mother can teach the baby while still on her lap, and this, I don't know, right from still their baby, a boy can be trained to respect women, or what is the best way? Why violence against women in Northeast India? Again, another question. Is it because women are ignorant to report? Women are just keeping silent. They don't want to report it because of this more and more violence comes, or what? Conscientizing women in this regard may be important. The last one is very interesting. The worst affected group would be among the women. See, among the women also, worst affected by COVID-19 would be this sex worker, you see, commercial sex worker. How shall, as a church, we respond this issue? Commercial sex workers will be the most, even among the women also, affected by COVID-19. How shall we respond as a church? Because we did not, church does not, you see, recognize this thing. And these are some of the things, there may be more. So you please respond this, then it will, some more will come, I hope.
While Thwami is responding, may I request you to open your video, because I want to take a photo for the reporting. 5 minutes only, please open.
Everyone, video on, please. Dr. Thwami, you can start responding.
Okay. Thank you so much for the questions. And many of those questions are really enlightening and also help me to consider more about the women's issues in Northeast India. Let me start with this. Here, Christianity in Northeast India seems to be more than 150 years older. So most of the churches already celebrated our centenary. And we tend to think that Christianity transformed our society. But at the same time, that Christianity does not bring liberation to women in Northeast India. So I think this is what I really need to emphasize. So transformation of the society may be there, but liberation of women does not happen. So that means that Christianity is not a liberative factor for women in Northeast India. Maybe because of the theology that we have inherited, and the way we interpret the Bible does not really bring liberation, but rather the Bible is almost used as a weapon to suppress women in our churches. This is true in the case of the ordination. we are not allowed, especially the Mizoram Presbyterian Church, let me say, the church has used the Bible as a tool not to ordain women in leadership, or that is to say that we can't be a pastor. So the way we interpret the Bible has become a tool for suppression of women. Okay, so that is one thing. And the other thing is like our socio-cultural practices are in tune with women in Judaism. So most of our church leaders think that the Bible also exists. If we don't ordain women, that sort of thinking is very much there. So in our social cultural practices, as of now, is much more stronger, more powerful than the powerful, the liberative message of the Bible. So I think that this is the one particular issue that women in Northeast India are facing right now. So transformation of the society does not bring liberation of women in our society. So that means that we are still in that patriarchy of the society, and even our churches are also following the patriarchal hierarchical structure where there will be no room for women. There is no space for women in terms of leadership. Okay, so that is one thing. And the other thing is like, of course, gender-based violence. This is also a very important question. This is see, we are born and brought up in a patriarchal culture, in a patriarchal society and family, where there is a clear-cut division of gender roles and gender norms. Okay, so it is clear that, of course, it may be our mothers who can be an agent of this patriarchy. Our mother may be the one who would like to follow very strictly of these gender roles and gender norms. Okay, so if anybody violates that gender norms, gender norms and gender rules, and then that person has to be given some sort of attitude, because of this, even our mother also would like to follow these gender roles and gender norms that have been practiced from long ago. So in that, our mothers can be an agent, but at the same time, with this coming, with the modern family, people are more and more enlightened, but still then, I would say that this is still very strong. To maintain, to follow strictly gender norms and gender roles is really very strong even now, okay? So in that, I really do not know, like, what would be the best way of removing this gender-based violence. So I think then we really need to come up with a new understanding of the conception of God, our concept of theology, and our concept of Christianity. I feel that we really need to rethink the whole concept in which we are in now, whether we are Christian or Christian society or whether our social cultural concept. So I think that rethinking is necessary to undo all this gender-based violence. So because we are still very much within that gender roles, gender norms. As long as we maintain this, I think it would be very difficult for us to do it away, this gender-based violence. So it is up to us, whether I respect a person, a male or female, as a person, as a human being created in the image of God. So it all depends upon respecting people as a person, as men and women. And then the next one is like data collection of lack of data and reports of Northeast Indian context. Of course, let me say that this is I should have done data collection report of Northeast India, but I was very much guided by the whole scenario, the global scenario. So that's why I took omit his report. Let me just say just one thing in the case of Mizoram. Right now, I am one of the members of State Women's Commission, and after lockdown, the telephone that we received, the members received, is mainly of women who are the victims of this domestic violence. You know, so many women are telling their stories the way they suffered violence from their husband. So this is one, especially in this Aizwal, the urban setup, where many of women are suffering. But of course, one thing is that many of the women would not like to open up themselves, even though they suffered domestic violence. So, of course, I myself have also to do a sort of collecting some data. And the last one, the sex workers. Of course, this is very difficult question that I feel, as Mr. Matsung Longkumar has already said that the church is already reluctant to accept these commercial sex workers as one of our members, and we hardly gave a say. Even before pandemic also, we hardly had a say for those commercial sex workers, you know. So I think that this is one thing. We really need to do something as a church. And what I think as the role of the church would be just to provide a sort of halfway home for all those sex workers who are in the city or around us. And that means that if we give, it is good if the church can give a shelter home for those commercial sex workers, especially those who are always walking around in the streets. And now, after this lockdown, it is very, very difficult for all those commercial sex workers. But it is, I think, if the church can have, can provide women's shelter, it would be really good. And the other thing that what we can do is, if we can provide resources in terms of money or in terms of food or some forms of assistance, I think the church can do it. Okay, that's all what I can say. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much. See, a few questions put here for our resource person, Yanbemo. Where are you? Yes, you are there. Let me just, I think there. You can read also. Just highlight. So some are still, fear about vaccine side effect because of some sickness, because of this and that sickness. It is dangerous to take vaccine and all. But they say that government doctors and all are not educating people enough. Is it like that, or they have educated enough, or I don't know? So if you can respond to that. Secondly, of course, you have already put your answer, but still question is there. Thousands of Naga youth returned from various Indian cities and lost their job. How to rehabilitate them? You see, that is already, you have suggested one thing, but then they still want to know. Then also, a government told them to register these people with GON. This is, I think, one government site where these people can register. If those people register themselves, will the government help them? Or what is the government policy to help these those who lost their job due to COVID. Then also another thing is how you actually see people are afraid of COVID, those who died of COVID, and to bury also. See, still here in Kolkata also, in government, sorry, in the church on cemetery, you see, they cannot bury because they are very much afraid, you see. So in what way you educate the people in this context? People are very much afraid, but then somehow you can convince them in what way you educate. And also, secondly, is there any hidden strategy for by the Christian Forum for employment of the unemployed youths due to COVID? Do you have any plan as a Christian Forum for these people, unemployed youths, due to those who lost their employment due to COVID? These are some of the things. There may be some more. Please respond. And another round can also be there. Please, yes.
Yeah, I'll try to respond in a very short way because I don't need to explain. It's on a process. So the first is here about vaccine. Government have a lot of strategy to give information to the people. But see, the media, social media, people don't tend to listen to government because I don't know what is the problem. I can't give the answer. But people mostly, listen to the fake news. So this is one of the things. But government have a strategy to now give awareness to different villages and rural areas, like some deduction will be done from the local development fund. But what I understood is that this government have a lot of procedure system. It will take time. When it is going to happen, we don't know. But this COVID pandemic happened from last year. So by now, the system should be thoroughly there. And as we all know, this pandemic, the best medicine is prevention is better than cure. But these things happen very slowly. Yes, government is doing a lot, but things are happening very slowly. That's the reason we are trying to do in our own way to facilitate and help the villagers. So doctors are mostly, in Nagaland, doctors are very less. And they are mostly engaged in the towns and cities. So that is the reason that still villages are not been given any awareness in most of the villages, according to me. Now, the second rehabilitation of youth, I would suggest that it is not the responsibility of only churches, but it is a responsibility of all the NGOs and government and everything. For example, District Task Force Dimapur is formed representing like NGOs and church leaders and different organizations. Likewise, even to solve this unemployment problem in the future, what we would like to suggest is that we have our own part to play. So government needs to play their part, church and NGOs and other organizations need to play our part. But the thing is that we need to form a committee which we can work together and rehabilitate these returnees. That is the suggestion we would certainly one day give to the government. And the third, registration in the apps, those who have returned. I don't, this is very sensitive when we talk about this, like we are blaming government and government is not doing anything or no like that. But but we can't accept from reality. The Nagaland government, when it refers to Nagaland government, we have huge deficit and a lot of debts. So I don't think easily the government of Nagaland, they are doing a lot, but I don't think easily and very soon the government will not be able to rehabilitate these returnees. Therefore, it is the churches are known to, is not second to anyone. So the churches need immediately come together and if possible in our own capacity need to rehabilitate and help these returnees instead of just waiting for government. That is my suggestion. And Bari, I actually from 2020, I conducted a decent funeral service in one of the houses because she died at home, not in the hospital. Of course, all the disinfection was done by the district task force, but just wearing masks, and I conducted the funeral service and buried the dead in 2020. As I have shown in the picture, in 2021, now cemetery has become our second home. We have to go every day. Or some of us, the pastors, have to go every day because in Dimapur, in the past 2-3 weeks, in the past like last month and 2-3 weeks, every day death, COVID death is happening here, but the number is decreasing by the grace of God. See, God gives us some kind of a consciousness, a kind of awareness. The God servant should have that kind of knowledge. So before government announces that the COVID death, person is, once it is disinfected, sanitized, it is totally safe. This announcement was only later on. But before that, we were conducting this COVID death persons with only simply wearing masks and other PPE kits. But so far, by the grace of God, and after taking a lot of following the SOP, I personally giving witness to all of us. I am still free from COVID by the grace of God. So. Yeah, according to doctors, nothing is, once it is disinfected and sanitized, the COVID death person is totally free. Rather, we should be very careful who are alive. So we don't need to discriminate the COVID death person. And also in one instance, I went up to DC, Dimapur, and make modalities for the COVID, burying for COVID death person in a Christian way. And he really happily accepted. Now, the COVID dead persons are also conducting in a very proper, funeral service are conducting in a very proper manner. This is happening in Nagaland, but it varies from state to state, district to district. According to the district task force, they have their own SOP and way of conducting or burying the dead. That I can't comment, but what we are doing here is in that way. Now, Christian Forum, a concern for unemployed, the unemployed youth in Dimapur. Where the Christian Forum, we have a Nagaland Christian Forum, that is whole Nagaland, but Christian Forum Dimapur, we're talking about Christian Forum Dimapur. We have already formed a committee for the unemployed or returnees in Nagaland. So certainly we will do, first thing is we will do research and find out and tie up with some of the NGOs who are running skill development, and we will see in the best way which we can help to these returnees and unemployed in Nagaland or Dimapur. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you very much. We still have some time, a few minutes, let's say. Yanbemo, could you please respond to these few things still here? Do you think that our socio-cultural context of Northeast is a big hindrance to youth unemployment? You see, is it our socio-cultural context as in the Northeast? It is creating problem to the youths. So that is one thing. And another thing is fake news about vaccines being circulated. Why does the government keep silent? Huh? Why should not they take action? So this is another thing. And how about funds coming from central governments, especially for this COVID battle? You see, is it utilized wisely or adequately, or I don't know. So that is another question. Then here is one more. I think the last one, if you look at a little bit longer one, there is a fear psychosis around the handling of COVID victim with videos and people wearing PPE and carrying the body and conducting burial rites and all these things. But there are enough scientific evidences that the virus is transmitted mainly through droplets while speaking. and all. So all these things. Now, why there should be such fear? Huh? So the real danger which we fail to see is in the crowding mourners surrounding the disease, not in the dead body as such. I think this is just a comment, very good comment. Can you please make comments on this?
Yeah, first comment, do you think that socio-cultural context is a problem for unemployment in Northeast India? Actually, even this question, I don't see any relation, but then sometimes it also matters. But otherwise, cultural context, I don't know in what way the person asks about this. Otherwise, if we start anything from our own social or cultural context, I think I can cite the example like Mizu. They really are careful about their social, religious, cultural, ethos and ethics. So how they are, there are so many leaders around the world. So I don't think that for me, it may be wrong, but it doesn't relate to any unemployment problem in Northeast India because of socio-cultural context. That's my comment, maybe right or wrong. I can share in that way. Second, the fear about the fear about to take the vaccine. Yeah, government, I don't know. See, started this pandemic from 2020 and all the frontline workers are fatigued, exhausted in many areas. I am also one of the frontline workers, to be very frank, engaged in 24/7. Sometimes I cannot sleep. Call comes at 1, 2 o'clock. We have to receive. If you don't receive, they will blame that the pastor did not receive phone call. So to be very frank, physically, mentally, we are all exhausted. So government is doing a lot, but it is not possible that government alone can, educate people to shun away from fear of taking the vaccination. But then why people started fearing to take vaccine. There are many factors, as we all know, because of fake news. And another thing is that before vaccine, of course, I'm referring about, I don't know other states, but especially in Nagaland, before vaccine was there in Nagaland, now some of the prayer centers and some of them prophesize that this Christians should not take this vaccine because it is connected with a kind of 666 or Satan, or who takes this vaccine will not go to heaven. So this kind of news was circulated. That's why many people started fearing. But according to my experience, as I shared in the beginning, when we went to village and, I shared totally about the vaccine. One way, sometimes I'm not a doctor or nurse, but according to my experience in so many areas as frontline workers, with the permission of doctor, because I tried to get information from doctors and nurses, I've been working with them. So at least up to some extent, I know what is a vaccine, how it affects and how it helps us. So once I shared with the villagers, they were convinced, they all raised hand that from today onwards, we will all take vaccine. So awareness is very important. So the church leaders and NGOs need to give a lot of awareness to have a proper vaccination. And the last thing is that fear psychosis, in Bahrain. As you have mentioned, evidences, doctors and scientists have given us proper evidence that the COVID deaths after doing sanitation, followed the whole protocol, zipping, and after putting in the coffin, they say that 100% safe. So a question also was raised in the village. If someone dies in the village, how can we do? Because how can we safely following the SOP and put the dead body in the coffin? because in the villages, especially in Nagaland, there are primary health center. But I would tell you, I mean, share with our friends, in most of the primary health center, there is no facility. When we went for seminar, we did not only talk. We provided oximeter. We provided PP test. We provided the temperature test. And we provided some of the medicine recommended by the doctors. So I told them how to, without fear, following SOP, taking precaution, and conduct the put a dead body in the coffin. They were very happy. And I told them that if such thing happens, please communicate to us or to some doctor so that we will assist you through WhatsApp or through maybe video Zoom or conference. That's what I shared with them. So these things we can, if we share with people, certainly their psychosis will be stopped. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. So enlightening. And thank you, Yanbemo, and also Dr. Thuami for your presentation and also response to various questions. And now I will give time to Reverend Dr. Wati Longcha, who is the coordinator of this seminar. He will take some time, and I will close tonight's session with a word of prayer. And after what is take his time. Over to you, sir.
Thank you so much, Moya, for the time. Tonight is the last class. So I want to give a brief report and also the prize that we have promised, book prize that we have promised to give. So let me give you a brief recap of what we have been doing. Here it is. I hope you can see it. So we have inaugurated our leadership program on 22nd January this year, followed by an introductory lecture on 29th January. Altogether, 193 church leaders and students from 12 countries registered for the course, representing all denominations, including 2 Catholic. Denomination means I mean Protestant churches. Despite network challenges, cyclones in some places, and political crisis, the attendance was very good. The Module 1 was attended, 172, first seminar. Second, 162, second seminar. Module 2, 128. Second, 135. Module 3, 147 attendance. And then second, 103 attendance. Module 4, 98 attendance. And then second time, 132 attendance. Module 5, last time we had 168 attendance. And then today I was checking, one time it came up to 110. So you see, in spite of many difficulties, attendance was quite good. So people were very interested in this program. 15 people discontinued due to other unavoidable engagement and internet issues in Myanmar due to military coup. Altogether, 23 resource persons facilitated the sessions. The seminar recordings were uploaded on YouTube for those who missed the seminars and could not get the points due to network issues, except for some disturbances due to internet connection. The seminar went on well, on time, and it was quite okay. We plan to publish 5 books after the seminar. We have published the first book, COVID-19 and Vulnerable Communities, Christian Responses, edited by Module 5 coordinator, Dr. Yanbemo. The other 4 books are expected to complete before the commencement of the next training program, which we plan to start on 26 July. I have received an evaluation report from almost all of you, except 10 plus, and then you are also requested to submit your addresses so that we can send you the certificate. All of you have appreciated for engaging qualified and experienced facilitators in different expertise from different countries. Well-planned model, strict maintaining time, clear visual presentation, and handouts before the session. Of course, some we could not do it. Many of you have found the modules helpful in your context and appreciated practical insights. Some of you mentioned that question and answer sessions were most interesting as they clarified many theological and ethical doubts. On the negative side, many of you mentioned that there was less time for interaction and discussion. Some questions were not answered due to time constraint. Some resource persons focused more on theoretical issues without giving practical implication at the grassroots levels. Though more on though some doubts were clarified by yesterday's piece of writing by Dr. James Callum on vaccine, Bible, and Christian. An invitation of a medical doctor for one session would have clarified many confusions and myths related to COVID-19. Sharing testimonies of participants' encounters during pandemic would have enriched the lectures session. So this, suggestions were taken seriously, and then next time we are going to integrate those suggestions. Many issues discussed during the seminars were new. That's what they said. The connection between the COVID-19 pandemic and ecological imbalance and the need for care of God's creation. Many have commented that the session on local food security and livelihood was a new issue. The training has created new awareness on the care of Mother Earth. Some mentioned that it was an eye-opener to understand that the marginalization of the vulnerable communities is due to unjust economic and political structures. We need to move away. And some of you have mentioned that we need to move away from the charity-oriented ministry of compassion and love to justice-oriented compassion and care. One fellow wrote, the training program opened my eyes to see how human greed and selfishness create inequalities and destroy God's creation. I have also learned the importance of home ministry. One pastor mentioned that he learned practical steps to contain a sustained nurturing ministry in times of sorrow, grief, and mourning. The training taught me to love, listen, care, respect, and empower others, regardless of caste, gender, and race. How are we going to implement those things that we have learned in our places? One fellow said that training encouraged me to practice Jesus' teaching every day. So I have already started an online counseling service for those COVID-infected and affected patients. We cannot visit and go anywhere, but internet facilities are not disturbed. I have a telephone. I will reach out to my community by phone and pray and give emotional support to them. I will make sure that I care for them deeply in my heart. People need us in every aspect of life, of their life. I will ensure that they understand my Christian values and moral support. I will extend to them wholeheartedly. Thank you, Nico, for this great opportunity. One pastor responded, without undermining the other new and important lessons I have learned. However, the importance of investing in local food security in pandemic time is noteworthy. I, being in the church as pastor, this lecture has given me a renewed interest in local mission, and I hope I will be able to put it into practice. This will be one of the prophetic ministry I want to take up. I wish to educate the church members about the importance of food security by harnessing local organic food. To realize this, I will educate the concerned members to channel local mission project towards this. One person responded, I have started organic farming at home. One person wrote, thank you for making me understand the needs and problems of elderly and how to care for them. I will ensure that I spare at least 6 hours a week to listen and help in the old age care center in my city. So you see a lot of enthusiasm. There are many things that I can report, but those are the gist of what you have written to, given in the evaluation report. With that, I want to thank you to the Vice Chancellor, Dr. Cutting, the Chancellor and General Secretary of CBCNI in Nico, and also Dr. Benjan, Area Secretary of the International Ministry of American Baptist Churches, Module coordinators, 5 of them, facilitators, and moderators of different sessions, including today. We're very thankful for your sacrifice and for contributing your best for the success of this training program. As we have mentioned, we have prepared 4 prizes, book prizes. So I want to mention that after evaluation and also after assisting the participation and the question and other thing, Chancellor's book prize goes to Miriam Jacob. I think he's here, but we're sorry to and then Vice Chancellor book prize goes to Matsang Longkamer. And then International Ministry of American Baptist Churches book prize goes to Dr. Rensen Mela Longcha. Niku book prize goes to 5 persons. The first one is Jivan Babu. Second, Easter Zomi from Myanmar. Third, Mr. Khatitin. Fourth, Miss Kavikali Zimo. And then fifth, Easter Moy from Kenya. So these are the awardees, and then we will be sending. It will take some time to reach you, but we will make it sure that the book is reached by you, because signature we are in a different place, so it will take some time. So I also want to thank all the participation for your active, very attentive, active participation all through the 6 months training time. We're thankful to God that we could be a help in this fight against global fight against COVID-19. And I wish you all the best and stay well and safe. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, sir, the organizer, for this very great seminar class. Thank you, all of you. Shall we close this session with a word of prayer? Shall we look to God in prayer? God, our Heavenly Father, we at this time want to give thanks to you for Northeast Christian University for organizing this kind of seminar, where a number of your servants are trained, are taught in this manner, so many issues, so many things, that they are truly benefited from this for their life as well as for their ministry. We thank you for the organizers, those people who are involved in organizing this, the pain they're taking and the commitment they have. And for all the instructors, those people who are giving lectures week by week, week after week. We thank you for their commitment, their scholarship, and all their zeal to serve you. We pray that this program may be a successful one, and all the people who are joining this program may get the benefits out of this program. God, we pray that you will bless this university in the days to come as well, as they are planning another program. God, we pray that you will bless that program as well, and the people who will be involved in all those programs. We pray, oh God, that you will be with us in this time of crisis, pandemic. Be with each one of us, that we may be saved. Not only that we may be saved, oh God, but we may be a blessing, a channel of blessing for those who are suffering. Be with us. Be with us the whole night. We pray these things in the precious name of our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. Amen.